The Daytona 500 is a race that turns the average race car driver into a legend. It's the most coveted trophy on the entire schedule, and many of NASCAR's greatest will go their entire careers without ever winning one.
If you're going to have a career in stock car racing and it's going to be complete, you got to win Daytona 500. Simple as that.
And in 2007, 4 Hall of Fame-worthy drivers representing NASCAR's past, present, and future would compete for the crown in what might just be the most chaotic Daytona 500 of all time. And while we didn't know it at the time, all 4 of these drivers would share a common destiny, each playing a vital role in the creation of one of NASCAR's newest super teams. This is the story of the 2007 Daytona 500. The 4 main characters of this race are already well-known and well-respected drivers at this point in time. Some of them are already champions, but none of them are Daytona 500 winners. At least, not yet. The first player, Tony Stewart, is a 2-time Nextel Cup champ, but is coming off a rather disappointing 2006 season. Despite scoring 5 victories, inconsistency plagued Stewart all season, leading to him missing the chase for the Cup and the worst points finish of his career so far. The same can be said for 2004 champ Kurt Busch. After losing his ride at Roush Racing, Busch relocated to Penske Racing in 2006 and struggled mightily, coming home 16th in the points. Young phenom Kevin Harvick is on the opposite side of the spectrum. He's coming off his best season yet with a 4th place points finish at 5 victories. And with a shiny new sponsor in Shell Pennzoil, Harvick is eager to make 2007 another great year. The last driver is arguably the most interesting though. Mark Martin had announced his retirement from racing in 2005. And then postponed it to 2006, and now in 2007, he's finally committing to running part-time. Don't worry, he'll be back another few times. But at this point in time, everyone expects this to be Mark's final Daytona 500. He's finally left his old team of Roush Racing behind and is now driving part-time for the newly formed Ginn Racing. Despite having a storied career of more than 25 years at this point, he's always been a notorious bridesmaid, never winning the championship or winning the Daytona 500. In 2005, Mark had already resigned himself from ever winning Daytona.
I felt like at the end I had a chance, and that's all I could ask for. We weren't the dominant car, but we did have a chance, and I'm real grateful for that.
Okay, to end your career without a Daytona 500 win?
Hey, it's okay. Just another shot of Gatorade.
Mark Martin finishes second today.
Unlike these other young drivers racing for a title, Mark is here for one reason and one reason only: to win the Great American Race. Speed Week started off with a bang for one of our drivers, as Tony Stewart makes a late pass to win the Budweiser Shootout, his 3rd time winning the event. Stewart has already proven to be an exceptionally talented superspeedway driver, and he would once again flex his muscle early here. Kurt Busch and Kevin Harvick would also come home in the top 5, and Mark Martin just outside in 6th. It's early yet, but it's looking like all 4 of these drivers will be threats to win the 500 come next Sunday. But the following day in qualifying couldn't have looked any more different.
Dadgum, he run good last night. I'm telling you what, that last little bit of that race, he got shuffled all the way back to about 12th. And he drove right up through the middle and come back and finished, what, he finished 3rd?
Finished 3rd.
And, I mean, he looked fast.
Car looked like he drove good.
Yeah.
And I would say, you know, I know Tony Stewart, the 20 team, they won the race, but the 2 best driving cars looked like to me, Kurt Busch in the 2 and David Gilliland in that 38 car once they got their fender fixed.
Yes, I agree.
All 4 struggled to post good times. Stewart clocked in the fastest of the group in 19th, Harvick in 31st, Martin in 35th, and Kurt Busch rounded out the group in 37th. Suddenly, things looked bleak for our heroes. But there was still time left to make adjustments. Stewart would prove in the duels later that week that his single car speed didn't matter, as he quickly maneuvered his way to the point and dominated his qualifying race, posting his 2nd win of Speed Weeks. The remaining 3 drivers would all be relegated to the 2nd duel. Harvick would fail to finish the race, meaning that he'd have to start deep in the pack at 34th in the 500. Mark Martin had a quiet duel, finishing 14th, and Kurt Busch would lose his duel on the last lap, getting passed by Jeff Gordon. But with Gordon being sent to the rear for failing post-race inspection, Kurt Busch would end up starting right beside duel winner Tony Stewart in the 500. Harvick, on the other hand, would find success in Saturday's Busch Series race, winning the event in convincing fashion. All 4 drivers had brave Speed Weeks with varying degrees of success, but now, the biggest trophy of them all was all that remained.
Chris, 29 career wins, 2 Nextel Cup Series championships, including a win in the Brickyard 400. But Smoke, is this the biggest event still missing from your racing resume?
Absolutely. I mean, every year our goals are to win the Daytona 500, the Brickyard 400, and the championship, and we've got 2 of those 3, so this is the only missing jewel in the crown. One other minor concern, our buddy Harvick there, my car owner in the Busch Series, he's been clowning around, shall we say, and I'm a little worried about his feet and his hands getting caught up. His feet.
Is that his new uniform?
I think it is his new uniform, so I'm worried about his big gloves and stuff, and then I'm worried about his feet getting hung up in the pedals, so that's the only concerns I've got today, really.
Kevin Harvick starts all the way back in the 34th position. He had a mechanical failure in his dual qualifying race, but Harvick's car very stout. He has 2 concerns going into today's race. A, starting so far back in the field, hoping everyone is patient in the early going. Second, like the guys in the booth mentioned, they'll win. But RCR, they haven't won a plate race in 7 years now. Harvick's never won a plate race. His best finish is second. They think that can change today.
On lap 19, Kurt Busch and Tony Stewart would team up to snake around pole sitter David Gilliland and maintain control for the majority of the event. The 2 of them would swap the lead many times, but were always careful to keep the ferocious pack behind them at bay. In total, the 2 of them would lead 130 of the next 134 laps, putting on a masterclass of superspeedway driving for the whole field to observe. Stewart even had a pit road incident just before the halfway point and still managed to run down the leaders and retake the lead under green. That's just how good his car was on this day. Kevin Harvick stayed in close proximity just outside the top 5 for most of the race. While he'd worked his way forward, it seemed like he just didn't have the raw speed to run with Busch and Stewart. Meanwhile, Mark Martin methodically worked his way from the back to the front. They were the young hares and he was the old tortoise, determined to win by skillfully outlasting them. And on lap 152, in an all too familiar story, the hares would crash out early.
Crash in turn 4.
Man,
and there in the midst of it sits Tony Stewart and Kurt Busch, the 2 leaders. And the strongest Chevy and the strongest Dodge in Daytona are wrecked. Tony Stewart's 9th try to win the Daytona 500 will come up short.
One slight mistake, and in the course of a single second, the 2 best drivers and cars of the day were completely junked. But that's the nature of auto racing. To finish first, you must first finish. Meanwhile, Mark Martin, the wise old timer, had just cracked the top 5 for the first time. And when the caution flag waved again only 20 laps later, Mark Martin's crew would make a bold 2-tire pit call to get Mark out in front for the first time. At the front of the pack, Mark would reunite with his former Roush teammates who worked with him till the end. That's just the kind of guy Mark Martin was. Even if he wasn't on your team anymore, he still commanded your respect. And with the best wingman in the field on his side, Mark would maintain the lead without much difficulty for the closing stint of the race.
Greg Biffle in the 16, Matt Kent's in the 17. Mark was their mentor at Roush's, and here they are following possibly to his first Daytona 500 victory.
It looked like smooth sailing for Mark until a late caution flew with only 5 laps remaining, sending the Daytona 500 into its 3rd consecutive overtime finish. After a lengthy red flag, the race would resume with Mark Martin in the catbird seat.
Front 4, single file. Here they go. They got to get Mark moving. They got to move him somehow.
He almost squeezed Harvick into the wall, and here comes Harvick, the 29, with Matt Kenseth.
Oh, Mark got loose.
It's going to be a drag race all the way back to the start-finish line. No caution. They're side by side, right to the line.
Big crash. Here they come. Checker flag. Kevin Harvick wins the Daytona 500.
In a stunning turn of events, Kevin Harvick, who had been several rows back, barely clinging to a top 10 finish, receives the push of a lifetime from, ironically enough, Mark Martin's former teammate Matt Kenseth. And with a nearly magical amount of momentum on his side, would blow past Mark Martin in the race's final seconds as the entire field crashes behind them. For many, the ending of this race can only be described with one word: surreal. Harvick coming out of absolutely nowhere for the win, Clint Bowyer crossing the line upside down and on fire, and at the time, it was the closest photo finish in Daytona 500 history. It was almost as if the gods of auto racing had perfectly orchestrated the ending of an unforgettable race. While at the time there was much controversy about NASCAR's decision to not end the race under yellow, likely handing the victory to Mark Martin and not Harvick, in retrospect, I think NASCAR's decision to let them race to the checkers was the correct one, giving us a finish completely untainted of upper-level officiating. Mark Martin expresses his disappointment with coming up so agonizingly close, but as always, is gracious in defeat, reminding the entire NASCAR community of why they love him so much. Even Jeff Burton, Kevin Harvick's teammate who came home third, expressed more grief that his former teammate Mark Martin didn't win than he did joy for his current teammate winning. That's just what Mark Martin means to NASCAR. As for Harvick, this is just his 11th career win and what will go on to become a legendary career. 1 year later in 2008, Tony Stewart and Kurt Busch would clash once more on the final lap at Daytona. But like the previous year, neither would make it to victory lane, as Kurt Busch tucked in and pushed his Penske teammate Ryan Newman to the win. Tony Stewart would then go into ownership the following year in 2009, merging with Gene Haas to create Stewart-Haas Racing. In 2013, Mark Martin would join the team to sub for an injured Tony Stewart, finishing out the last 12 races of his illustrious career in Stewart's famous 14 car. The very next year in 2014, Stewart's longtime friend and competitor Kevin Harvick would join the team and earn the organization's second championship, and the only of Harvick's career. Kurt Busch would also join forces with Stewart-Haas that season and begin rebuilding his career after a few years at rock bottom. And only 3 years later, Kurt would lead the team to their biggest win yet. Tony Stewart and Kurt Busch may have walked away heartbroken in this race 10 years ago, but today would finally be their day.
Whoa! Busch, where'd he come from?
Ryan Blaney from the back with Logano. Blaney takes out the gas.
He might get there, but I don't know. I think this might be Kurt Busch's day. Looks like he's going to come home a winner.
Kurt Busch has been the bridesmaid in the Daytona 500. Here they come off turn 4 for the final time. From Las Vegas, the 2004 champion of the series, Kurt Busch, for Gene Haas and Tony Stewart, wins the Daytona 500.
Wow, first time he's won the 500. What about this?
In this moment, Kurt Busch not only won the Daytona 500 in his 17th attempt, but Tony Stewart finally won the 500, not as a driver, but as an owner. And ironically, it was with the man who he had to fight against the most to win it himself. While these legends of the sport are no longer racing today, it's amazing to think how this one event tied all of their destinies together. 4 drivers with nothing in common but trying to win one race all ended up driving under the same banner at one point or another. Some may even say that the 2007 Daytona 500 is the true origin story of Stewart-Haas Racing. But regardless of whether you think that or not, the fact remains this Daytona 500 is the perfect showcase of what the great American race truly means, from start to photo finish.